Bark. Bark, bark, bark. Bark. Bark, 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 bark. Bark. It's not the same. I miss actual dogs. And cats. And birds. And frogs. And pretty much every single other animal on the planet. And people. And the planet. Oh, hi, I didn't see you there, because in the last episode I ended up erasing all of reality, so there's no one actually here right now, and I'm just talking to myself to try and hold on to whatever sanity I still have. How are you today? Yeah, so in case you're just joining us, in the last episode, I chucked a magical book into a swirling mass of evil, and now I'm surrounded by darkness. Well, darkness and, that thing. Yeah, he's not really one for conversation.
I can converse.
Holy crap, you can talk? I've been standing here for days and you haven't said anything.
I was talking, merely in a language you could not comprehend.
Oh! That's cool. Not creepy or ominous in the slightest. Hey, so you're like a giant, all-seeing eyeball at the end of space and time. You wouldn't happen to know how to restart the universe, would you? Is it like rebooting your hard drive? Do we just have to find the power button and hold it down for a certain amount of time? Do you have a backup point saved somewhere? I'll take something from like 5-6 years ago if you don't have anything more recent. I mean, then I get to watch Endgame all over again.
Why would you wish to bring reality back? I have watched your world since the dawn of time, and a darkness has been growing, and misery has been spreading for so long. Why would you wish to return to that?
Okay, yes, you have a point. Things back in reality were bad. I mean, it was probably the worst I had ever seen it. I mean, we did have a pandemic and a quarantine and uncontrollable fires and government corruption and police brutality and murder hornets and oh my god, I forgot about the murder hornets. Holy crap, this year was rough. Alright, sorry. But, even though things back in reality got so bad that I ended up getting desperate to try and fix it, I ended up getting really reckless with some dark magic, and we all saw how that turned out. That doesn't mean that things were hopeless. Things could definitely have been worse. There was still a chance that things could have turned around. And I'm sorry, I want to continue this, but it's just really distracting looking up at a giant eyeball. Is there anything else that you can do to try and help me out on this?
Is this more suitable?
Very intimidating, but yes, definitely better. Okay, as I was saying, things were bad, but they could have been worse. I mean, hell, I'm a big horror movie fan. There are a lot of worse places that I could have spent Halloween than just quarantined inside my own apartment. In fact, tell you what, we've got a tradition here on Thorgiween that we close out every single year with a top 31 countdown. So how about this year, we send us off with a list of the top 31 best locations from horror films. We are going to look through this list and we are going to find some place that is definitely worse than where we've all been stuck all year long. Yes, last year we counted down the best horror movie villains, but sometimes a good horror movie doesn't even need a villain. Sometimes a setting is all it takes. A good horror movie location can be more effective than any monster and have more personality than the protagonists themselves. However, if we're going to count down so many possibilities from so many films, we need some ground rules. First rule, these have to be actual places. And I don't mean they have to be actual real locations in the real world. No, I mean it can't be any sort of magical concept or idea or thought that's taken on a physical form, like the dream world from Nightmare on Elm Street or the pain dimension from Hellraiser. However, beyond that, the definition of a location or setting is going to stay rather vague. It can be a whole town or a single room, so long as that setting is featured heavily within the film. Also, the location does not have to have a name. If an entire film takes place in a house or an office or an apartment building, and that building is never named, we will still consider it. However, the location does have to be the reason why it's special. In other words, if a movie is about a house being attacked by zombies, the house isn't important. The zombies are. But if there's something about the house that specifically makes the zombies attack, then the location is important. And lastly, this is not a list of the scariest locations. No, it is the best locations. And to determine what that means, we're taking many factors into consideration, such as the design, the lore behind it, how effectively it's used within the film, and much more. So alright, you giant swirling mass of whatever you are, you ready to count down 31 great horror movie locations, all to try and feel better about the crappy situation we were stuck in back in reality?
I am ready for everything as I experience the past and future all at once.
That's the spirit. Here is our top 31 best horror movie locations. Number 31, the Sawyer House from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Horror films of the 70s were defined by their grungy aesthetic, and nothing encapsulates that more than the Sawyer House from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yes, it is tempting to say this shouldn't count since the big appeal of this house was the deranged cannibalistic family that lives within it, but the house on its own is still creepy as hell. If your car broke down right outside this house and you went inside looking for help, and you started to explore this old, dilapidated home, the smell of just something dying and decaying in every single wall, bones decorating the ceilings, and a mysterious room that appears to be dedicated completely to murder, you'd run out there as fast as you could, even if you didn't see the chainsaw-wielding man wearing a flesh mask. Number 30, The Lighthouse from The Lighthouse. I know a lot of people are going to argue this location shouldn't count because there's nothing uniquely special about the lighthouse. It could be any lighthouse. What's scary about is the isolation that ended up driving our two protagonists insane. And to that I say, are you sure? The movie The Lighthouse is one of the most mysterious horror films in recent memory. Is it isolation that drove these two men crazy? Or is there a ghost haunting the lighthouse? Are there sirens manipulating them off the island? Is Cthulhu living in the light? Are aliens using this site for experiments? We don't know, but the fact that this island felt so mysterious that pretty much everything bad you could possibly think of might actually be happening here? Yeah, I'd say that still gets it on the list. Number 29, the Amityville House from Amityville Horror. The Amityville House is pretty much the #1 name in movies when it comes to haunted houses. Is it the best haunted house? No, but does it have a hell of a publicist? Yes. I can't put it too high simply because, as I said, I do think there are much better haunted houses out there, but the way the legend of this house has blown up does speak volumes to the success of this movie. There have been a lot of movies based around quote-unquote real paranormal events, but none of them saw name brand success quite like the Amityville House. Number 28, Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madness. This might be the oddest pick on this entire list because Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madness is a location featured in Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses. Why is this an odd pick? Because this location is not the titular location of the film. No, the location our protagonists end up getting stuck in that film is honestly kinda boring. The actual House of a Thousand Corpses is really just a cheap version of the Sawyer House from Texas Chainsaw Massacre without anything interesting to it. But Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madness, the roadside attraction our heroes stop by at the beginning of the film, that place is loaded with originality and personality. It's some sleazy tourist trap built around serial killers, all being run by Captain Spaulding himself, a man who feels like he belongs right alongside his displays, but has that perfect con-man personality to keep you listening to him. The entire time I was watching this film, I kept asking, why can't our heroes go back to the museum? That place was way more interesting than anywhere else in this movie. Also, it's the only location on this list where if you visit, you get a free bag of chicken. That chicken is totally made out of people, right? Like, they never actually say it in the movie, but it's totally implied, right? I'm not just reading into that. Number 27, Haddonfield from the Halloween franchise.
Haddonfield almost didn't make this list because, sure, it's the setting of one of the biggest horror movie franchises of all time, but at a glance, this town is incredibly average. It's just a normal suburban neighborhood. But that's kind of the entire genius of Haddonfield. The scary thing about the Halloween franchise was that it was a crazed serial killer coming to a quiet little street that could be any town USA. Meaning the more normal Haddonfield is, the more terrifying it is that this could happen in your home, in your very backyard. But Haddonfield is still unique enough to meet the rules of this list because it is specifically the home of Michael Myers, who has a die-hard obsession with murdering as many people on its streets as he can. But at least he's detained in a maximum security facility that is hundreds of miles away, and oh wait, no, it's like right down the road and has terrible security and people constantly break out. Ah, yes, I would say this indeed counts for this list. Number 26, Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow represents American superstition. It's essentially an entire town built around the myths and folklore and paranoia that every town has, but in Sleepy Hollow, those myths have come to life and run rampant. And for this list, it should be pointed out we are counting Sleepy Hollow specifically from the Tim Burton film because I feel like it's the movie that showed off this town the best. But if you have never seen the classic Disney interpretation of the story, I'd absolutely recommend it. It's maybe the creepiest Disney movie I've ever seen. I mean, sure, that's a weird sentence to say and doesn't really mean much on its own, but it's something. Number 25, Cuesta Verde from Poltergeist. Much like Haddonfield, the neighborhood of Cuesta Verde is meant to represent a peaceful little slice of every town USA. But while Haddonfield is scary because a crazed serial killer is obsessed with it, Cuesta Verde is rotten to its core. The neighborhood was built over an ancient burial ground, causing the homes to be haunted by a poltergeist. Now, it's worth pointing out that Poltergeist didn't invent the idea of building something atop sacred ground, but it is the film that popularized it. After this film, we saw a sharp increase in movies and stories that followed this same premise, and yet none of them really matched how well the concept was executed in this film. I mean, this place has skeletons floating in the pool and a demon tree in the backyard. It's practically everything that people in the 80s saw as a sign of a successful home distorted and warped into something monstrous. Number 24, Derry, Maine. Not going to lie, it was very tempting to just put the entire state of Maine on here and quote every Stephen King movie as a source and be done with it, but no, I had to get a little more specific, and unquestionably, the center of King's dark Maine obsession comes from Derry. This is the saying of It, which means that if you live here, then once every 20 years, a scary clown demon is going to arrive and make you live out your worst fears before eating you. But even beyond It, King has actually returned to this town for several other books and films featuring the other bizarre horrors of this town, making this sort of the Avengers of King's shared universe. Number 23, Seven Doors Hotel. An old abandoned hotel that was the site of demonic rituals is now finally being reopened, only for the new owner to find that said rituals helped turn this place into a portal to hell. On some level, this is just the Amityville house, but to a larger degree. But this location also gets some bonus points because it's from the Beyond, an Italian horror film. Actually, I'm sorry, correct that, an Italian Lucio Fulci horror film. Meaning not only is the Seven Doors Hotel a portal to hell, it's an incredibly gross portal to hell. At least if I was stuck in the Amityville house, I could probably get through that experience without throwing up. Not here.
Oh god.
What is the matter?
Sorry, I just started thinking about the Beyond again and it started to make me nauseous. Or maybe it's the fact that I can no longer tell what direction up and down is anymore.
Up and down are concepts that I have far since grown beyond.
Thank you for your concern. So, hey, I've been meaning to ask, are you God or something?
To some.
I'm really starting to question whether or not I should be making a video alongside the giant thing that came out of the portal to the dimension of evil after I threw a magical book inside of it.
You should continue the list.
I should continue the list. Wait, did you make me do that?
Number 22, 55 Central Park West, aka the Shandor Building. From the outside, this looks like a regular haunted apartment building, and if you just watch Ghostbusters, then that might be all that you take away from it. Okay, so there were some rituals done a couple decades ago, and now it's a portal to summon an ancient Sumerian god. Impressive stuff, but does it really have enough personality to land on this list? Well, that's where the fan base comes in. Out of all the entries on this list, I don't think any location has had quite so much lore added onto it from external sources. There has been a massive lore built up around this location, not just from the movie it came from, but from the cartoons, the comics, heck, even from spec scripts for sequels that never ended up getting made that the fan base has taken and run with. Every good list needs a few fan favorite entries, and the fans are what made this location so special. Number 21, the apartment building from Wreck. I know some people will argue that this spot shouldn't count because Wreck is a film about an apartment building that gets attacked by zombies as the residents find themselves boarded up inside and unable to escape, so it's not really like the apartment is that special, it's the threats inside and outside that are the real focus. That is until you get to the very end of the film. Big spoiler warning in case you haven't seen Wreck and Wreck 2, go ahead and jump ahead by about a minute because here we go. At the end of the first film, our heroes learn that the top floor of the apartment belongs to some crazed maniac who has conducted experiments, and these experiments are the cause of this zombie infestation. And in the second film, we learn it's not even zombies, it's demons. And these experiments have been going on for who knows how long, and now there's even demonic children running around through the walls. As I said at the start of this list, if you have a building that's being attacked by zombies, doesn't count for the list. If you have a building that spawns demonic zombies, yeah, that totally counts. Number 20, Jurassic Park. Alright, I know a lot of people are going to say that this one also should not count because it's not from a horror film. And to that I say,
oh, Mr. Arnold.
yeah, Jurassic Park was indeed a variety of genres, and one of those genres was horror. Yes, it was a family-friendly action-adventure horror, but it still counts. And one more do I need to say about why this is such a great location, other than that it's an island built to house the most dangerous creatures in the history of the world, and all the power goes out, allowing them to escape. Heck, just being on an island with no power is scary enough. You're already trapped there with no way off. But you throw a T-Rex into the mix and you've got yourself an amazing setting for a movie. Number 19, Silent Hill. Now at this point, I want to remind everyone that this is a list of best horror movie locations, so I am solely looking at the depiction of Silent Hill in the movies, not in the video games that they were based upon. And while I will say I think that the first Silent Hill film is just okay and the sequel is absolute garbage, the depiction of the actual town of Silent Hill is really damn good. The constant fog that coats the entire city, the ash raining down, the way the town just melts away to be replaced by a living nightmare, the twisted abominations that just crawl out of every crack in reality. As far as bringing the look and feel of one of the most iconic video game locations to life go, they did a pretty good job. Number 18, Summer Isle from The Wicker Man. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like an outsider? Like everyone in the room was looking at you and they knew something that you didn't? Now imagine if instead of a room, it was an entire island, and the thing that they knew was that you were going to be sacrificed in a giant burning wood effigy. That's what's so scary about Summer Isle. It's not just that a cult lives there, it's that the entire island is the cult. And if you end up there, well, that pretty much makes you public enemy number 1 just for existing. And as we said with Jurassic Park, it's an island. Even when you realize something is up and you're surrounded by psychopaths, it's not exactly like it's easy to leave. Number 17, the Nobi Cabin from Evil Dead. There's a lot of examples of horror movies set in cabins out in the woods, but the Nobi Cabin from Evil Dead has to be the undisputed champion of this category. Now, admittedly, I did take some points off because the cabin is really only evil because of the book that was being kept there. Again, in retrospect, I really should have known that reading from that book was not a good idea. There were so
So many warning signs!
However, that book and the spell it enacts does twist this location into a world of madness. It corrupts the woods so that the trees themselves come to life and the paths leading out of there disappear. It crumples the bridge back to civilization into a claw to trap you inside and mock you. The previous owner of the cabin trapped his demon-possessed wife in the basement, who is still there all these decades later, by the way. And can any of us forget the famous laughing scene? Yeah, even if it's not the cabin itself that's doing all this evil, I'm not going in there. Number 16, the church from the church. Hey, remember how Cuesta Verde got on here because it was a neighborhood built on sacred grounds? Yeah, now imagine a church being built on desecrated land, and you can see how that would be much, much worse. This church was built over the mass grave of witches who were buried during the Dark Ages, and now after all this time, well, you know when someone sends you an email with a file attached to it, and that file gives them a backdoor into your computer so that way they can sneak in there and hack your system? Yeah, it's basically that, except rather than a hacker, it's Satan. This place becomes a prison for the people inside as they are tortured by the creeping claws of the devil who begins to manipulate and drive them mad. And did I mention this is another Italian horror film? So expect it to get really gross and really inappropriate really fast. There is a goat demon in this movie, and that would be scary enough on its own, but whatever you think he's going to do in this movie, I assure you, it's actually much, much worse. Number 15, the Bates Motel. The Bates Motel makes it up here because if you've ever driven across America, this speaks to a fear that has at some point popped into the back of your head. When you're out there on that road, you know you're going to need to stop somewhere. You know you're going to have to find a place to stay for the night. And then you see some motel on the side of the road, and you have that little voice speak up that reminds you, no one really knows you're going to be staying here. And you don't know what this place is. Something could happen here to you and no one would ever know. You are essentially about to enter the home of a stranger, and you're going to pull in there so that you can sleep and shower in it. You're going to be totally vulnerable. And the Bates Motel is that fear made real. That motel where you check in, but you don't check out. Also, the really old creepy house up on the hill overlooking it with a corpse in the window doesn't help either. Number 14, the Black Hills Forest from the Blair Witch. I think there's a very primal fear to the woods. I mean, it's basically nature's maze. You go in there and sure, you can have a plan, you can have a map, you can have a guide, but one accidental wrong turn and all that goes out the window. Nothing in the real world is scary quite like being lost in the woods. But at least, if you retrace your steps, use your head, try to learn your surroundings, you can probably find a way out. That's what's so scary about the Black Hills Forest. It's the home to the Blair Witch, and once you get lost inside her web, she can make sure you never leave, and she will toy with you, slowly building up your torture with every single night until you're driven mad and just want to escape, but you can't. Number 13, the Event Horizon. The Amityville house was scary because it was a house that was a doorway to hell. The Seven Doors Hotel was scary because it was a hotel that was a doorway to hell. The Event Horizon is a spaceship that is a doorway to hell. This takes the fear of those other locations and mixes it with the alien in space no one can hear you scream element. I mean, you want to escape the Amityville house or the Seven Doors Hotel, just run out the door and don't go back inside. Yeah, you can't exactly run out the front door of a spaceship. But after you see some of the sights inside, you might want to try it anyways. And at number 12, completing the Sam Neill trinity of this year's list, Hobbs End from the Mouth of Madness. Okay, all that stuff that I said about the Black Hills Forest, about being trapped in a place that you can't escape, yeah, bring that back around here, but then throw in a whole other level of psychological horror where you aren't just questioning if something is out there or if you're going crazy. You have to question if you even exist or if you have free will. Hobbs Inn is a fictional town in a series of books written by Sutter Kane. That is, until it's not. When an insurance inspector goes into this town looking for Sutter Kane, he finds that not only is this fictional town very real, but he also can't leave, and everyone inside the town is under the control of Kane. And that could very well extend to the insurance inspector himself, as Kane has now ascended to becoming a god whose writing can alter reality. The Black Hills Forest was scary because you had a witch out there messing with you, but imagine taking that witch and multiplying it by 1,000, and now you're up against a demented, twisted god with a massive superiority complex who just wants to sculpt reality around messing with you.
What was that?
I didn't say anything.
Oh. Because it really sounded like you said something.
Hey, who here is the floating assembly of cosmic energy that knows and sees all, huh?
Right, sorry, shouldn't question a thing that's older than time itself. Anyway, back to the list.
Number 11, Room 1408 from the Dolphin. Every town in America has their own ghost stories. That one haunted house with that story that goes back generations. But most of them are fake. They're just a scam created to try and bring in an audience. Room 1408 at the Dolphin? That's real. The hotel doesn't want the fame, it doesn't want your money, it doesn't want attention, it doesn't want you to stay here. It wants everyone to get as far away as they possibly can from room 1408, because if you go in there, you'll be tormented over and over forever until you take your own life. And the room isn't trying to teach you something, it isn't trying to negotiate with you, no, it just wants to torture you. In other words, as Samuel L. Jackson so eloquently put it,
it's an evil room.
Number 10, House on Haunted Hill. We've had a lot of haunted houses on this list, but I would say that House on Haunted Hill still to this day stands decapitated head and shoulders above most of them. Yes, it's a classic, so I'm sure some people think I'm picking it just for the name recognition, but it's a classic for a reason. A murder happened in almost every single room in this house, and to this day, it is still loaded with traps and ghostly specters waiting around every corner. What more do I need to say about this house other than it feels exactly like the type of house that Vincent Price would host a party in? That alone gets it into the top 10. Number 9, The Cube. This giant labyrinth is a series of ever-changing rooms, each wall connecting you to a brand new one, with some rooms being safe, while other rooms contain deadly traps. The only way to find your way out is to be a galaxy brain level genius, so for everyone else, it's practically a roll of the dice about whether the next door you open means you live or die. We watched this again for this year's post-freakout reaction, and even though I've watched it multiple times, each time I see it, it's almost like I'm witnessing it for the first time, because the setting of this film just lures you inside and makes you nervous about what could be in every new room. Number 8, Castle Dracula from, well, honestly, a lot of films. I couldn't even choose on this one, but does it really matter? We had to do this. You knew it was going to be up here. Hell, I don't even think I need to explain this one. It's the home of the Lord of Darkness, the master of monsters himself. The castle itself is home to multiple vampiric slaves, possesses some of the best gothic architecture of any horror movie, and even the forest surrounding it is home to countless other monsters. And to put the cherry on top, the only way that you can get to this castle is to have a carriage pick you up and take you there, and that carriage may or may not have actually been a ghost. This place just irradiates evil, and even after being translated into more films than probably any other location on this list, almost each interpretation still holds up. Number 7, The Facility from Cabin in the Woods. The Facility is on this list for one big reason: fan service. In Cabin in the Woods, an ancient organization known as The Organization has been conducting rituals for thousands of years, where every year they sacrifice a group of young people so that old gods won't rise up and destroy the world. And what this translates to is essentially every horror movie ever made has been created by this organization, and the victims of those films are their sacrifices, and the monsters of those films are the organization's tools. The entire film serves as one big metaphor for horror films, and at the end, we actually get to explore the facility and we get to see all the monsters inside. If you are a big horror fan, the facility is your candy store. It just takes everything you love about horror films and plasters it all over the walls. Rather literally in the third act. Number 6, the house from Hausu. The titular house from House might not be the most famous haunted house, but it is the most insane haunted house. Decapitated heads in wells, blood filling up the room to try and drown you, killer pianos trying to eat you. I could go on, but honestly, this movie is so weird, I think I might have blacked out about half of it just to retain my sanity. It's one of those movies that the only way you can understand the level of madness that went into the creation of this house is to actually watch it. Just be warned, it's a real trip. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
That was a weird one. And considering I've seen everything that ever existed and will ever exist, that's really saying something.
I know, right? I mean, I might just spent the last 7 months quarantined inside my apartment, but at least I didn't have to spend a night inside that place.
Kind of makes you appreciate what you had, huh?
I guess so. I mean, yes, things were bad where I came from, but looking at some of the contenders on this list, I guess I should feel kind of lucky I haven't had to deal with anything like that before. And now we're getting into the top 5, so you know these places are going to be really messed up.
Number 5, US Outpost 31. Despite the fact that this location is cracking the top 5, it almost didn't make the list at all because the big threat of The Thing is The Thing, a shape-shifting alien that is taking apart this team one by one. And this alien isn't tied to this Antarctic research base. I mean, yes, the ship that the alien arrived in was buried underneath the ice, but it's not like it was buried underneath this location. In fact, if we're going based solely on location, it was actually buried closer to the base in the prequel movie, and nobody needs to think about the prequel movie. However, the brilliant thing about Outpost 31 is that it's so isolated in a far-off frozen wasteland that when a blizzard kicks up and you can't even see a foot in front of your own face, it doesn't matter what the threat is. Everything becomes a matter of life or death at that point. The alien doppelganger that hunts these researchers down could have been a slasher, a zombie, hell, it could just have been a loose, angry dog. And all of them would have been terrifying in this location. This is one of the only instances where the monster didn't make the location made the monster. Number 4, Halloween Town. Okay, I know. This was the ultimate X factor on this list, because if I put it on here, half the audience would say, how could you do that? It's not from a horror film. And if I didn't put it on here, then half the audience would say, how could you not put it on here? It's the greatest Halloween-related location in movie history, and this is a countdown for Halloween. And while both sides have a point, I decided to include it because, yes, Nightmare Before Christmas might not be a horror film, it is a celebration of horror. It is a celebration of everything spooky and scary. And if you had to design a location specifically to be a salute to the supernatural, to ghosts and goblins, and to this entire time of the year, Halloween Town is maybe the best design you could possibly come up with. Honestly, just that opening song in which they are exploring the entire town and all the people that live inside of it, that alone gets it onto this list. Number 3, LV-426 from Alien. There's a very unique kind of horror that comes from the unknown, that comes from something so vast that you can never truly know what is out there. And nothing says the infinite unknown like space. But I can't exactly put all of space on this list, so I'm choosing LV-426 to be the official representative of this concept. When our heroes in Alien land on this planet, they have no idea what they've stumbled upon. Strange new organisms they've never seen are sprouting out of the ground that look like they came from a twisted creator's mind. a ghastly fog that covers the entire land, sinks in that idea of how toxic and deadly this environment is. And then, of course, there's the bizarre alien remains that feel like it has such a complex story behind it, you could turn that into its own film. Just looking at this, you can feel countless other species who have existed here before, and who knows what they got up to and what they left for you to find. Granted, we eventually got a prequel film and we did learn all those answers, and, well, as I said, sometimes the unknown is much scarier. Number 2, Camp Crystal Lake. There have been a lot of spots on this list that have been the definitive version of a classic horror location, the definitive haunted house, the definitive spooky castle, but Camp Crystal Lake is the definitive scary camp. Hell, Camp Crystal Lake is the only reason why summer camps even became a theme in horror movies. The number of films that have been influenced by the Friday the 13th franchise to the point where they just flat out try and rip off this very setting is staggering. Earlier on this list, we said that Haddonfield got on here because it naturally attracted Michael Myers, but Camp Crystal Lake doesn't attract Jason Voorhees. It is Jason Voorhees. If you step foot in this camp, he is going to find you, and you cannot beat him because he has the ultimate home field advantage. If there is any location in horror movie history that serves as the ultimate slasher movie setting, it's Camp Crystal Lake. And at the number 1 spot, the best horror movie location of all time, at least according to me, you're all allowed to have your own opinion, I'm not the boss of you can think whatever you want, is the Overlook Hotel. This hotel really has it all. It's got the long lore and ominous history of the house on Haunted Hill. It's got the sense of isolation from Outpost 31. It's even got the River of Blood from Halsu. Every location in this house is perfectly designed for a terrifying confrontation, all the way down to the hedge maze designed solely to serve as a dramatic end scene. Every ghost that walks its halls feels like it could be the antagonist of its own film. Every room in this place could serve as its own horror story. Hell, we put 1408 on this list. There is a room in the Overlook Hotel that is essentially 1408. One of the nominees from earlier in this list is practically a side note inside of the Overlook Hotel. And thanks to the isolation and lack of human interaction that comes with this hotel, it can lead to a level of cabin fever that would drive anyone insane. And after the year that all of us just had, I think we can all find that particular type of terror very relatable right now.
And there you have it, our top 31 best horror movie, or in some cases, horror movie adjacent locations.
That was very informative. And did you learn anything from this?
Well, I guess what I learned from this list, and really from this whole crazy Thorgiween adventure this year, is that as bad as things were back in the world that I came from, they could always have been worse.
Yes, you really should have accepted the world as it was, rather than trying to change it.
I didn't say that. I said things could be worse. That doesn't mean that I have to accept how bad things are.
But you only made things worse by trying to fix things. Wouldn't it have been easier to do nothing?
That is an awful way of thinking about things. Yes, okay, 2020 sucked. It sucked hard. But that doesn't mean you should just get jaded to the whole thing and say, well, things could be worse, so we'll just deal with what we have. No, that's an awful idea. You can always try to make things better. Yes, okay, I was reckless with what I did, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't have done anything. There were definitely things that I could have done to try and make the world better with the crappy situation we were handed. There were still things I could have done to try and make Halloween 2020 better for everyone out there. Yes, I couldn't go out there and have a movie night with all my friends, but we could hop on Discord and have a movie night online. Yes, I can't go around the neighborhood and look at all the decorations, but I know there will be people trick-or-treating within my own apartment, so I could put on a mask and some gloves and make sure that they trick-or-treat safely. There are definitely things that I could have done to try and make this year better. I could have voted on November 3rd. That really doesn't have anything to do with Halloween, but seriously, if we're talking about ways to make the world better, Go and vote, people.
But these actions are futile. It is too late to try and improve this world.
Oh, that's a bunch of bullcrap and you know it. Yes, I understand it is frustrating, looking out at a world that is in so much chaos, and knowing that there isn't some big magical answer that will just instantly fix it all. But only a sociopath would look at a situation like that and say, well, if I can't fix everything all at once, then I'm not going to do anything. That's not how the world gets better. That's the exact reason why the world keeps getting worse. You fix the world by all of us just trying to make things better every single day and just pushing ahead a little bit over and over the course of years. And yes, I know that doesn't sound amazing. I know that doesn't sound great. But that's how it happens. That's how you fix giant problems. So you have to just keep constantly trying to do that. You shouldn't just give up. I mean, seriously, you're an all-powerful entity. You should know this stuff. Why on earth are you telling me that I should just give up and submit and, oh... You're evil, aren't you?
Evil and good are irrelevant terms to one such as I.
Oh, God, yeah, you're evil. Oh, I should have seen this coming. We started this year with the Necronomicon, so I thought we were doing an Evil Dead reference, but then I had to walk through that giant barren landscape full of twisted abominations, and now we're dealing with space horror. Oh, God, this isn't Evil Dead. This is Lovecraft. We're in Lovecraft country this year. And not the good Lovecraft country on HBO. No, this is the bad Lovecraft country. So what's the plan now? You're just going to suck out my brain until I go insane from all the horrible things that I've had to witness?
That's the plan. Would have been easier if you just gave up and sat there, but hey, hungry mind-sucking space gods can't be choosers. Wait, what the hell is Wolf Cop?
Huh? Oh, that's just this really stupid movie that I had to review this year for Thorgiween. It's no big deal. Just pay it no mind. Don't think about that at all.
Okay then. And wait. Oh God. What's Fantasy Island?
Oh yeah. We didn't even get a chance to review that one earlier this year. I was saving that for a big countdown of the worst movies at the end of the year, but whoo man, that one was a stinker.
Oh man. Why is your mind full of just knowledge of bad movies?
Well, I mean, it is my job to watch these movies. Granted, in retrospect, it might not have been the wisest career path, but I mean, hey, there's some good movies in there too. I mean, we just list off a bunch of them, like The Beyond, The Church, Demons. We talked about that one earlier this year.
Okay, please stop thinking about Italian horror films now.
Are you okay? I mean, you're the first giant old god I've ever met, but I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to act like this.
Your thoughts feel like... Oh no. They feel like the equivalent to you of old rotten meat and expired milk.
Are you saying my bad taste in movies is actually giving you food poisoning right now?
Please shut up now. Oh me. Oh, it feels like the room is spinning. Oh dear sweet nothingness. Oh God. Why are you thinking about the Resident Evil movies now? Oh God. How many of those did they make?
Oh, way too many. You wanna know what's really bad? That director has a brand new movie coming out, and it's also based on a video game, and it looks just as stupid and dumb and...
I can't believe you don't shut up. Oh God. Oh no. Here it comes. I'm gonna...
Wait. Oh my god. Solid things. Walls surrounded by crap. Oh my god, I'm back. Reality's back. Holy crap. Who would have thought that a lifetime of watching bad movies would actually pay off in some way? Oh man, this means that I can still celebrate Halloween. This means that you can still celebrate Halloween. And yes, okay, fine. We might not get to celebrate Halloween in the way that we all wanted to this year. But that doesn't mean that you can't celebrate. Even if that just means going online and maybe watching a movie with all your friends. Or just going and buying some candy and eating it by yourself at home. Even that is a celebration of Halloween this year. Or hell, I don't know, just go on YouTube and find some public domain horror films. There are lots of ways that we can still celebrate safely indoors this year. Because Halloween really is going to survive no matter what. No matter what other crazy stuff 2020 throws at us, we'll be able to make it through, and Halloween is still a magical time of the year that we can all celebrate together, even if we're apart. So, everybody, go out there, make sure to wash your hands, wear your mask, not just your Halloween mask, but the one that actually covers your mouth, and make sure to just be smart, be responsible, and look out for each other. And that is the way that we're all going to get through this. So thank you guys very much for joining us for another Thorgiween. And until next year, happy... Oh god, I think that cosmic entity threw up on my shirt. Ugh, well, this is going in the wash. Probably for a couple of cycles. What gets cosmic entity barf out? Hot water? Baking soda? I don't know. I'll Google it. Anyway, happy Halloween, everybody! And go vote!